Okay, has everybody gone to the bathroom? We're recording this. Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 5 of Eat, Drink, and Be Scary. As always, I'm the tallest host, Bill. We'll go there, and from there we'll introduce everybody else according to height. Then we have Tanya.
Hello there.
Are you taller, Tanya?
Is she tallest?
I don't know. How tall are you?
I am 5'9" and 3/4.
No, I'm 5'11".
I'm 5'10".
Are you 5'11"
really?
in men
Wait.
height or actual height?
I'm
What's men
Like
height?
in Tinder height?
No, I'm 5'11".
Because I have met many gentlemen that are 6 foot tall that I am taller than.
Is it men height is like a plus
You wanna
2
stand
inch
up next to me?
automatically thing? Is this what this is?
I want to stand up next to you.
Okay.
And like, are you wearing like?
I have that much.
See, I'm wearing like flats.
Well,
Well, let's just find out. Tom, give play-by-play when they're sitting next to each other.
Ryan's getting up off the couch right now.
Are the shoes
Tanya's.
coming off?
Oh,
shoes are off.
the fists are coming out, everybody.
I'll take one shoe off.
Oh, it's a
There's
spectacle.
shoes
Oh, no,
everywhere.
Ryan's
Oh.
easily got a couple inches. Like,
probably.
yeah,
All right. Okay, so anyway, I apologize for that.
What's 9 plus 2? 11.
yeah. So
I don't know.
yeah,
I don't know.
92.
Can't ask me to do math.
Isn't that easy, man? The Earth is flat, and 9 plus 2 is 92.
Hey, speaking of Earth being flat, we went out to the dunes with the planetarium out there. The guy has a giant laser, and I was talking about. I was making a joke and talking about it's a laser. Anyway, I was talking about the Earth being flat, and he just kind of looked at me like I was dumb. And I made a joke about like, hey, if you keep shining lasers at planets, you're gonna anger the aliens, and they're gonna come and invade us. And he started giving me the science about how the laser wouldn't make it out there. I'm like, okay, whatever. I was being funny. I thought. Apparently, I wasn't.
Cosmic kittens are chasing it, though.
What?
Cosmic kittens chasing the lasers. Do you shoot out in space?
Oh, I get it. Lasers and cats.
And on that note,
All right, that's the end of the show, everybody.
Alright.
did we finish introducing?
Oh yeah, everybody else height-wise introduced it. Oh yeah, Tom.
Oh, right, yeah. No, at the
And coming
end,
in shortest,
Yay!
that'll be Tom. Thanks, Tom. Hey, listen. Can you put Tom up on your knee so he can reach his mic?
Hello!
Okay, so today we're eating. We've been eating. I've been eating all day. We've been eating all day. But for this, we're eating some sort of hot pickles and some spread.
There's some flamey pickles, too.
But I want to talk about the drinks for a second. I'm really excited because today we're going to be talking about, theme-wise, we're going to be talking about a Russian incident that happened. So we're drinking White Russians with actual Russian vodka. And it was actually not that easy to find, Russian vodka. You think it would be, but then every time you go to find one, it's like from Poland or Vienna. That is a really nice Russian name with your Vienna vodka.
So this asparagus is spicy. How spicy is this asparagus?
Less spicy than the pickles.
Okay, good.
You know what? That's
He's
interesting.
eating
Is it
them.
like
Well,
a
Spicy's
Idaho
not-
and
no, he's-
potatoes
he's
situation
chewing it.
where everybody
How is
knows
it?
Idaho for potatoes, but nobody in
It's
Idaho
actually
gets
really
the
good.
Idaho potatoes?
Yeah,
And
it's good.
Maybe. I don't know.
you hear about Russian vodka, and you don't get Russian vodka. You get Ukrainian vodka.
I with all the spicy things. So today we're talking about how do we say it? Dyatlov Pass.
That was really good.
Yeah, you have to say it every time. I'm just gonna point at you and I'm gonna say it.
Dyatlov.
So it
Yeah.
happens in the winter, which is going to be very cold, and I thought it would be nice to juxtapose all of the hot pickles and hot asparagus with our cold story.
They did have some sub-freezing
brilliant.
temperatures. During my research, I have found out there have been about 7,842 podcasts that have done something on Dyatlov Pass. I'm sorry, that's done something on
Dyatlov.
Pass. And so whenever I point from now on, you have to remember to do that. But with that, still, I've always been fascinated for two reasons. Because the very first thing I ever saw was this very biased supernatural nonsense related to the Yeti, where they said it
Well,
was,
okay, but here's the problem with that. If the Yeti did kill everybody over at
Dyatlov.
Pass, there would be Yeti footprints, and they only found the 9 sets of footprints.
Yeah, but you do understand that that goes into another conspiracy where there was a government
that went
military
around
cover-up.
filling in footprints in the snow.
Jetpacks.
Well, I don't know. 'Cause there's a lot of conspiracies based on government. I mean, the files went classified immediately over at
Dyatlov.
Pass when that happened, and
You guys stop.
Well, I mean, Yeti on with like one of those, those flying jetpack things.
well, they could have been covered up because they also say that the military were involved in that. That was the case. Why didn't we see their footsteps?
Well, because
I
they did
don't
it with
know.
Okay, you want my actual idea?
No, I don't want to do anything yet until we talk
Okay,
about what
let's
it
talk
is,
about
and
it.
then let's talk about what it is. Okay, so this is the other reason why I'm fascinated with it. It happened exactly 10 years before I was born, February 2nd, 1959. So that's what's kind of cool too. I was pretty fascinated by that. So those who wants to just tell the incident?
You go ahead. Sure.
Okay, so in 1959, a group of 9 students. They were engineers, students. They were very, very smart, and at the same time, they were very. They were experienced hikers, so they knew what they were doing. Like,
Well, there were 10 of them,
Yeah,
and then
sick
one of them
guy
got
got-
sick and went home.
Yeah.
well,
I
there
think
were
it's a lucky
9.
one.
There were 9. One got sick, but remember they brought that other guy on. They brought that older guy on,
Oh,
the
okay.
ex-military guy.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's right.
So, and that guy was his name was Semyon Zolotoykhonstin. Anyway, which that guy, he was like almost twice the age of those other guys. They were all in their early 20s, and he was late 30s, 40s, something like that. Okay, so anyway, as they were all on this hike, a week into it, and the reason they know this is it was very well journaled, and it was very well photographed. They took a ton of photographs during this whole event. They documented it very well, and they actually even made a little newspaper. Did you guys see any of that? They just started doing a daily newspaper of all the events. It was really cool.
Who did the military?
No, the students.
No, the hikers.
The
They,
hikers.
I
like,
knew that they were
instead of-
writing like a diary type.
Yeah.
Of
They
thing.
were writing it, but they were making it like a news report, like today on the news.
Oh, I
Today
see.
on Dyatlov Pass. Did you know that Dyatlov Pass is named after one of the people who died?
Yeah, Igor, the guy that was putting it all on, right?
Yeah, it was he named it.
You know, there were 3 people on that group of 10 named Yuri.
Yeah.
2 of them died
That's
together.
confusing.
They did.
The Uris.
Yuri in it. Really in it. I can't. I tried to do a joke and I failed. All right. So anyway, it was going to be good. It made more sense than its original Russian. All right. So anyhow, that night, the night of the 2nd, February 2nd, there was a horrible incident, and they did not find these students until almost a month later, and then some even beyond that. They found the campsite a month later.
Right.
And then periodically we're finding them because some of them were almost a mile away in the tree lines. And there were some really interesting things about that. Number one, the biggest thing that confused everybody was their tents were cut open from the inside
Right.
with a knife. Now, we'll talk about, I don't want to get ahead of some of the theories here because people have reasonings for that, but how many tents were there? Do you know?
I think they were all in one tent, but I think
Yeah.
there were.
I've heard tents. That's the thing that I don't understand.
So I think there was one tent, and I think there were a few different cuts.
Well, long story short, the whole thing about this pass, this Dyatlov Pass, is that basically 9 people died in very mysterious ways, and each death was completely different from the next. Like, there was one person that she had her head pulled back, her jaw was broken, her tongue was missing, like parts of her eyes were gone.
Right.
Oh, 2 people had eyes missing.
No, just one.
She
Just
had
like
her
she was the
tongue
only
out.
one. From what I understood,
Yeah.
what I've read, it was just her, the girl with the tongue and part of her jaw.
One
People have massive
victim
internal
had a
injuries.
fractured skull, 2 had major chest fractures.
Yeah.
The body of another had missing tongue and eyes. And
it was, like, from the root.
Like 6 of them died from hypothermia, and 3 of them showed physical trauma.
And the interesting, it wasn't tissue damage; it was all bone damage.
Well,
It's like
it was internal.
yeah, they described it as if they were in a car accident.
Yeah, but there was no bruising, right? It was just
Right.
all internal issues.
Right. Yeah. Just like this fractured skull is not what killed him, but it wouldn't have felt good. But he had one. And the tongue thing, they said that they didn't identify if there was blood in her stomach, but they said that there was a red goo, which could have been wine because remember they were intoxicated. But they said if there was blood, she swallowed blood. That would have happened while she was alive.
Right.
So there were some interesting things involved in that. So the first 2, who were the 2 that? So there was the girl, and then were they the ones that Let's see. I'm
So-
trying to remember who it was because they died.
During dinner, did you know that? That's the interesting thing. When you say that, what they talk about, they found the contents of the stomach. They also found like everything inside the tent was completely nicely set up. They were in the middle of dinner. There was
Well, they weren't.
half-eaten meat.
They weren't. They were preparing dinner.
Preparing dinner.
It had been 6 to 8 hours since their last meal.
So on factslegend.org, it says that the rescue team found the badly damaged tents of the team, and investigators were told that the tents were torn down from the inside, and none of the team members were inside the tent, but their belongings as well as their shoes were present inside.
Right.
So that's really interesting.
So I don't think we need to go into much of the specifics of what happened. I want to talk more about the theory because you can research this stuff all day long, and we're not going to tell anybody that people don't already know.
Right.
But one I do want to talk about is the theories because there's quite a few theories of what happened. And I thought I knew in my mind. Oh, I knew what happened until I did a bunch of research on this and found out. No, I don't think that's what happened because none of it made sense.
What do you think happened?
So originally, so they made a makeshift stove. Keep in mind, it was like 30 below during this with the wind. It was not, and they were not in a great area to be doing this. Generally, they would hike where there were trees. There was trees, and it'd be a little warmer. They were in a big open area. And the thought was that they were about a mile past the tree line, and they would have had to turn back to make camp. So they said, let's just do it right here. And they did. And upon doing that, sealed their fate or their doom because I thought it was an avalanche. And this is why. Everybody said, well, it was an avalanche, that just enough snow hit the tent, made them think there was an avalanche. And it made their stove break, and their flames, the thing filled with smoke, and they had to run out naked because they couldn't breathe. And they were all disoriented, and they just ran because they thought an avalanche was coming. That made sense to me.
Yeah, but wasn't there no sign of an avalanche? Wasn't there no sign of an avalanche?
There was no sign of an avalanche because I didn't know that. But I didn't know that. But you got to think, some of them were found under the snow, though. They were under quite a bit of snow.
Yeah, but like quite a bit down from the campsite and down a ravine as well.
But it was like 12 feet of snow, wasn't it?
Yeah, there was. Yeah, they said 3 meters. They were underneath.
But they also found them weeks later.
Yeah. So it could have
And not immediately after.
Yeah, during the spring
Yeah.
melt, generally.
Yeah.
So, okay. So keep in mind though, they did find the girl with her. She was in the water. She was partially in the water, and they think that the water may have washed out her tongue. But anyway, so that was my.
Wait, what do you mean the water washed
They
out her
said that
tongue?
because it was frozen, the way she froze, and it could have just washed out her
Yeah,
tongue.
I actually read something about that. So they were saying that the two people who were missing eyes from their eye sockets and the tongue thing were due to mostly that there was a lot of cold water there and it was freezing and melting. And after they were days since they found them, or before they found them, so they said that kind of eroded the soft tissue essentially.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So that was just a thing. A lot of that kind of made sense to me. They were in a tent. They thought an avalanche was coming because they were at an angle. A little bit of snow could have come. Who knows? It could have been a little tiny avalanche. They panicked, cut out their tent filled with smoke. Keep in mind the two that they found. Did you hear about the two by the tree?
Yeah.
Okay, the two by the tree.
The Uris.
They were naked, and they were trying to climb up the tree. But not only did they chew up their hands trying to climb up the tree, they're burnt, and some of the clothing was burnt. And there was a picture of one of them with burnt clothing a few days prior to them dying. There's one of the pictures. So they said that tent was malfunctioning. That fireplace was malfunctioning.
So actually, that's interesting because I've always kind of believed in that fire theory. That's always been my go-to with the stove. That's interesting because I felt like when you have discolored skin and it shows that they left the tent in a huge big hurry because there was some kind of like scary catastrophic event obviously inside of the tent that they needed to get out of there. But then once they got out of there, they like proceeded very nice and calmly down the slope of the hill as to not fall down. So obviously once they got out, they were able to reassess and gather their wits. So it's not something that continued to be a threat once they left.
Well, weren't they described as orange?
Well, yeah, discolored. That's the thing.
Yeah,
all
well,
of their
how-
skin was discolored.
Yeah, but how would a stove discolor their skin?
Well,
Well, here's the thing. I mean, it talks about that catching completely on fire, and if you're sitting there, and they also talk about some kind of blood around some of their mouths, and that's all concurrent with smoke inhalation.
And hypothermia, right?
Well, yeah, but I mean, with smoke inhalation, if you're in a canvas tent, that's going to keep all of the smoke and air inside of there. And so if you have any kind of anything on fire, it's going to put out a lot of terrible smoke. And if you're stuck within, an 8 by 10 foot space or a 10 by 15 foot space with all that inside of there with you, I can imagine you getting a little discolored. All your stuff's going to be discolored. You're going to smell like crazy stuff for a long time.
They also showed what would consider to be mummified. And if you go hiking up Mount Everest, you're going to see a bunch of orange, mummified, gray-haired bodies.
Oh yeah,
there,
that's something to consider too.
It's not difficult to get mummified in a frozen environment like that.
Okay, if you say so.
I saw it on the internet, so it has to be real.
Well, true, it does.
Abraham Lincoln said that.
Yeah.
So, okay, here's my thing, though. There are so many different theories that talked about the avalanche and about the stove, but if these people were experienced and they had been doing this many times before, and they went up in February, which was considered one of the most dangerous times to go, whose idea was it to put a stove in the tent?
Well, I mean, have you never been camping up? I mean, you're from Missouri, so
I still wouldn't put the stove in the tent.
Yeah, they had a little chimney, though.
Wall tents have camp stoves in them all the time. I mean, that's how you keep them warm. That's how you cook, right on top of them. And so this was also, 1959 is before a lot of this stuff. I mean, they've been using this technology in the Army forever, but this guy kind of made his own. It was kind of a prototype of his own. So it's also inside of there.
There was a picture, too, that people were looking at saying that the tents were set up wrong. Did you notice that? Like, they said that any experienced hiker would have put their tent up a different way. So that kind of leads into my theory of if they were in an area that was testing by the government, or they just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, and it was more of a cover-up rather than let's blame it on a fake snow avalanche that tipped over a camp stove.
Well, what kind of cover-up? Because, I mean, at the same time, you have a few different hikers and campers talking about seeing different lights in the sky at the same time. That night, only, I think, one account, but a couple accounts from nights around surrounding that. And then they were talking about those things being possible, Russian rockets and stuff. Because we're talking about the 1950s, the middle of the Cold War, the Russian space race. I mean, they're launching rockets off every few days.
There was a testing ground near there.
You mean
No,
it could have
they
been
were doing
biological? It could have been anything.
Well, we're getting ahead of, and we can talk about each theory at a time.
Right.
But I think one thing that there's a couple things that dispel that. First of all, they said that wasn't an avalanche area. Also, they said that there was no sign of an avalanche, and the last thing being is the calm footsteps away.
Yeah, that kind of totally threw me, too.
They say there was calm footsteps. Now, when they show all these footsteps, though, they show the pictures. Is it weird that people set up a camp? The only footsteps you're really seeing walking around are the ones that after, which would have meant there was snow. I don't know.
Yeah,
Just
like
saying.
where are all their footsteps setting up camp
Yeah.
and not just running away from?
I mean, so what was the amount of time between when they decided they were missing and when they went up to find them?
Well, here's the big problem is they were the lead Dyatlov, the guy who said, "Hey, I've set this up." Instead of giving them, if I'm not here by this day, he said, "Hey, we're going to take our time, so we'll be here February something-ish." And that was the problem. So I don't believe they were found until like the 25th of February, or something like that. So it was almost they had been gone almost a month by the time that they were found.
I mean, there's constant snowfall, you think, up above the tree line. Anytime there's snowfall, you're going to get a new layer that's going to kind of permafrost over, and you may not notice a couple of day-old footsteps.
So keep in mind these guys some of them were drunk.
Yeah.
And they said that they did not look like they were running around frantically, they didn't run out it's not as if they ran. It looked like they walked to their destinations calmly. Maybe you can tell that, maybe you can't. I mean, this is 60 years ago, so...
well, I mean, you could tell if someone's erratic or running because the footsteps would be farther apart, they'd be deeper in the snow.
Depth, right. That's how I think they gauge on the depth of the footprints.
But running in the snow isn't easy. You're not going to take huge strides, especially if you're barefoot. Some of these people were barefoot.
Like I said, my thing is, they were in the parachute mining area too, where they would drop these mines from a parachute, and when they got 10 to 15 feet above the ground, they'd blow up. Right? That's one possible theory. But I would think that if there was something falling from the sky trying to blow up above my head, whether I was Russian or drunk or both, I would be running away from that.
Okay, so now we're going to go to let's go to theory number 2. Or not theory number 2, which will actually probably segue into some others. The bright lights.
Well, they were saying, that's what I'm saying. They were correlating the bright lights with these Russian parachute mines. And because they were bright orange or they had some sort of explosion that gave off a light.
There were other hikers, they said, believe that were 30 miles away. Can't remember how far they were or something like that. I don't remember.
Well, people were trying to say they were aliens too because of the orange lights that they were saying.
Oh, well. And also, I don't know if you saw the kids that lived nearby. They were like the tribe next door. They were like weird
Monzi
colors.
tribe.
And, yeah.
What do you mean they were weird colors?
I don't know. They said that they were seemed like they were an off color. That was one of the theories I had read, that they talked to the tribe, that they were doing so much testing there that the tribes were starting to turn a weird color.
Was it orange? Because that's the color that these people said they were when they got back.
I don't know.
The Mansi people, M-A-N-S-I.
Yeah, and that was another theory. It's one of the theories they said that they believed that, because they called that route Death Mountain.
Mm-hmm. Because some of the Mansi tribe people had died on the mountain before.
Right, but then again, it's like in the middle of nowhere with snow. I would die in about 6 minutes. If you left me there, I would die, and my jaw would be gone. And it would just be for me screaming for help. That's why.
I think an important part of that is you got to be like that. I don't know how many exactly, but it says that 4 of them were reported as dying inebriated, and so that's got to be an important part of it, right? So if you're going to be straying out there in the middle of the snow, I've been drunk in the middle of winter.
I've camped and been drunk.
It's a liquid sweater, man. You feel warm. You don't know that you're freezing to death until you're out there for 10 or 15 minutes. And it doesn't take very long, I think, in that weather.
Well, and it was up to negative 30.
Right.
So
Yeah, but these also were experienced hikers. Just because they were drunk doesn't mean they're going to forget what they're doing.
Yeah.
Have you ever been drunk?
No. So, maybe, I guess.
Sometimes I've
Let's get him another. Let's get him another White Russian.
Yeah. Here, you want to finish mine?
No.
Okay, so we'll talk. So the avalanche thing, I think we kind of feel that didn't happen.
Right.
So one of the other theories, it's going to be the military. We'll talk about that for a second. Now, keep in mind, there was a picture taken of somebody. Which have you looked through the pictures?
Some of them.
So the very last picture. Let's talk about that for a second. The very last picture they took was a blurry light, which could have been a bunch of different things. It could have been. It easily could have been a candle or something out of focus. Who knows what was going on. Some people say those were the lights that were happening at night, that they took the lights. Now, the camera was set up to take a picture that it didn't take. It was on a tripod. It was pointing a certain way. The lens was off. That was one of the things that happened. Also, the photographer, another guy who was taking pictures, he left all his stuff and grabbed his camera when he went running. That's the only thing he took. Apparently, something on the camera was very valuable to him. There was another picture that everybody was questioning, and which people that think it's the Yeti thing will tell you it was a Yeti. People who think it's the military will tell you it's just a soldier. Anyone who just thinks is going to tell you that it was just one of the other people, but it was in the trees, and it looked like just somebody back there. Have you seen that picture?
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
What do you think it is?
Well, this coral hull person is saying it's a fallen angel.
Oh, that's a new one. I haven't heard the fallen. Oh, I've never heard the fallen. That doesn't even make.
Doesn't make sense to me.
I mean, I don't know these people personally, but I did see some of these photos leading up to the incident. I mean, they've got published photos of the days right before the incident. They seem like they're generally pretty decent people who are hardworking, and, your general Russian rabble of the time that gets up there, and they were all, pretty experienced mountaineers, hadn't lived their life in a cave, so.
What they look like is people that are in their 20s that want to have fun and drink.
Well, right, but how? Okay.
Judged by the archangel.
So you look at the picture, and you see the thing in the trees. There's people that say at this point that it was the military, and the military beat the crap out of them, chased them out of their camp. They tried to escape.
How? without any tracks. I mean, without anything. I mean, you're talking about the depth of tracks leading away from the tent, let alone, how the hell would they do that? And what would cause them to get out of there? I mean,
to me, it makes more sense that it was some sort of biological weapon that caused them to act in a way that they wouldn't normally act, and then why they were under influence, they fell to the hypothermia. But there's also some crazy theory about wind wrapping around the mountain, creating infrasound that crushed all their bones. I mean,
well, so I just pulled that one up. The infrasound. So what that says that it did. It's the way that the wind passed over the top of the mountains, and it created what they're saying physical discomfort and mental distress. So it kind of induced a panic attack, which is what they think could have led them to leave the tent. But by the time they got down to the hill and were away from it, they kind of got their wits about them, but couldn't find their way back to the shelter, and then just kind of suffered their injuries.
Which yeah, because they said that they left two behind with a little tiny fire. They're just going to do any good, and then it looked like they sent some back.
Well, infrasound is bad stuff. I mean, they were using that as a weapon. I mean, you can make infrasound guns that basically destroys people's eardrums, and that was actually one popular theory for why people see ghosts. Because there's a certain wavelength that if it hits a body, it can actually mess with the fluid in the eye, and it produces shadow-like images that people see, and they think that what these shadow people are, what these ghosts are actually people who are succumbing to certain wavelengths of infrasound. So, I mean, if those mountains do produce that type of wavelength, it's very possible that it could have had some sort of horrific effect on them. But my question is, why doesn't it happen more often?
well, right. Has it?
I mean, if it's a naturally occurring phenomenon, you would think that we'd hear about it more than once.
Well, and I guess in that case, it probably does happen more often, but people are just not out there that far in the perfect conditions. I mean, you almost kind of have to have a perfect storm for that to happen, where someone's out there to experience it in the exact right spot, and the conditions are happening at the exact same time. So it could happen way more often than we think. It's
I mean, I know this is
no one's out there to find it.
It's Siberia, and it's way out there. I get this is like the least populated spot of the world, but I mean, how far out there are they? Out in eastern Russia, or western Russia? I guess wouldn't it be? Can't they just? Can't they just go out there and check? Is there nobody else out there camping now? Has nobody else stayed out there in the last 60 years?
Well, they just reopened the case because they said they found another body, right? But does that?
Whoa! I knew that they reopened the case, but I don't.
Yeah, I believe that they said they found another body. And I wonder if that person's just someone who froze out there, or did something crazy happen with them too?
Okay, so I didn't know anything about that. I just thought they reopened the case because it took till the 90s till they declassified. The one thing is the Zolotarov guy, the older guy who he was the guy. Oh, he had eyes missing too, but he was the severe chest trauma guy with the eyes missing. He was the older one that he wasn't originally part of the group, but they brought him. But they ended up really liking him. There was a theory that he was with the KGB because, and when they followed this theory up, they did some DNA. They dug up his body, they exhumed his body. And they held up a picture of him next to the skull, and they go, yeah, that kind of works. And then later on, they did with a known relative. They did some DNA testing, and they didn't match. So they started saying that the Semyon Zolotarov guy, that he wasn't who he said he was.
Really?
And that was somewhat related, and that's why the military thing came in.
Espionage.
I'm not sure if doing the known relative thing can be valid, because I have known people that have done the ancestry DNA testing thing and realized they were not part of their family.
There are industries built on this. You can't say that.
Why do me and the UPS guy have the same DNA, Mom? This doesn't make sense.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
So that happens. Yeah, I know. Your mom's a whore. Sorry. Your
Except
mom's
with two
not a
people on the
whore.
opposite ends of the world at the same time. I don't know how that happened.
But anyway, that was one of the theories. So I didn't know if you can find that out, Ryan. That would be awesome, because
I'm
I've
looking it up. Yeah.
read nothing. I just know that they reopened the case. Actually, they reopened it in 2015. Is when they reopened the
I
case.
was just kind of looking over that. I hadn't seen anything on the 2015 one yet, but
Well, they did reopen it.
So one of the more ridiculous reasons I've read for it is Wolverine. Wolverine.
By the way, every time you hear this, it's me snapping my fingers at Tom because he's putting his mic
my
down.
microphone is miles away from my mouth.
Yeah.
It's because I'm short. Do you remember? You guys
That's right.
rigged it up from the ceiling.
Hey, can somebody get
I've
him a
got to
phone
jump.
book?
I'm jumping, and it's coming in like this. No, it's because they thought that a Wolverine made its way into the tent possibly, and that they tried to fight it off with the cameras, which would explain like some of the camera scratches on the lenses and such. Which maybe would be why he had his camera with him. Maybe it's just what he had in his hands if he was trying to fight some intruder like a Wolverine. And they all, I mean, like a skunk, I think they put off some kind of like biochemical.
But there
defense.
wouldn't have been any animals that far at night, a mile away from the tree lines.
That's why I agree. I don't know. I don't live in Siberia. I live in Idaho. It's pretty close. I mean, if you haven't been, come visit. Don't move here. But that being said, it's cold. It's way cold up top. I don't know. I'm not a Wolverine. Maybe.
Yeah,
Are
but
you a shapeshifter?
I'm a shape-shifting Wolverine that travels through time. It was totally Ryan.
it was me. It was me. I don't know. Maybe I'm just making the whole body thing up. Or maybe I think maybe I misheard or wasn't really listening.
I think we should travel.
I mean, it would be
ourselves.
cool if they did, but
Yeah, I think other than the gas biological theory, I think the infrasound theory is pretty neat.
yeah. So the gas biological one though would have explained the mumming, the orange and the gray hair, because if they was doing the radioactive type testing near them, and I guess we should remind everybody that some of the clothing was tested to be radioactive.
Yeah, and they
Not
came
all
back-
of it.
I mean, they also came back with gray hair. I mean, I don't think snow does that to people.
Yeah, but
Marriage does that too.
there were only 3 pieces of clothing that were tested to be radioactive, and 2 of them were like barely over the accepted level of, well, let's classify this as not normal, and one of them was maybe twice that level, which isn't really that out of character for just sitting out in nature. So, but it's also being said, well, it could be radioactive fallout. There's always radioactive fallout everywhere around us. They just measure it in parts per million by whatever space that they're measuring by. And so if it exceeds a certain parts per million, then they say that's too much. So that these 3 articles of clothing did that, and that they're too much, but they actually proved that these 3 articles of clothing belong to people who worked at, like, nuclear facilities and top secret things for the KGB and for the Russian government. So they were around things that would have been nuclear. And
So you're saying they just forgot to wash their clothes?
well, I mean, like, if you're thinking about it,
Can Tide get
maybe
radioactive
they were in
out of
extreme cold weather. They wanted some
new-
thick
This is a
clothing.
Tide
New
ad.
Tide campaign.
It was in their closet, sitting around for 5 years, and they were like, hey, we're going to go up to the top of the mountain. I need that super thick sweater now, and it's been sitting there.
But if I had a radioactive jumpsuit in my closet, wouldn't all my other clothes also be radioactive?
Well, first of all,
Oh,
I
yeah,
question why you had a
ideally.
jumpsuit.
Well, whatever. I don't know. I'm not from Russia. I don't know.
What's in your closet, Ryan?
I mean, if you never walk around at night, you really wouldn't
Skeletons.
know, would you? I mean, if you're putting off a kind of an eerie glow.
Yeah,
That isn't your
Or
regular
in this
eerie
case,
glow,
a
Ryan.
Yuri glow.
Oh, and that's our show, everyone. Thanks for coming. That was really good.
That was a really good one.
Yeah, I like that.
Thank you.
Okay, the jetpack Yeti is a good theory still.
I think that's what I'm going to go on now.
Yeah, I think so.
It's got as much viable information.
Well, I think we should try to test the infrasound thing.
How?
If we can build a machine that produces enough infrasound, we could just point it down Bill's hallway, right, and see how it affects
And
the
see
people.
if we can get everyone to break out of their apartments.
Yeah, everybody freaks out, starts, and then like ripping each other's eyes out in Jaws.
Well, we just turn it off and go back.
Okay.
So,
to
Bill, are you
watching
going to
TV?
discount the idea that there are any animals above the tree line? So, because I'm wondering. 'cause
I
I've always
at that
kinda
late
thought-
at night, an animal. I know a lot of animals are nocturnal, but
But
they're not going to just go
they
a
didn't
mile
find those
away.
guys. The ones that were missing,
Even if they
the
smelled food.
The ones that were missing the stuff, I don't think that they were found till later on. So in my mind, like I had attributed that to animals.
But you're saying, but they were also far away. Like they were at the tree lines. They weren't found near their tents. They were found like a mile away.
That's true. So I had heard a theory that they had maybe triggered an avalanche. The 3 of them had been hiking, and it makes sense that if they had all regrouped at some kind of tree line, and then they made a fire, and that they had sent 3 of them back toward the tent, and maybe 3 of them back toward a different direction. Maybe they had fallen off of this or triggered an avalanche that swept them off of this ravine that they were found at the bottom of. I mean, it's obviously rocky, and they're suffering internal injuries that they're liking to car accidents. So, if I were going to fall 20 or 30 feet, being shoved by a bunch of snow, that would fit the bill.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like if the animals were involved, they were just an aftermath for the bodies and natural decomposition. I don't think one
I concur with that.
I don't think one breaking into a tent is going. I mean, it's a Wolverine. I mean, a Wolverine in a tent. I'm sure that's pretty scary.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, like the Wolverine thing, I think seems pretty far fetched. But the whole idea that like the eyes and the tongue are missing shouldn't. I don't think that should like trigger a bunch of alarms for people. I think if you were missing out in any wilderness, your soft tissue would be. I mean, people cut out tongues of. Several societies eat tongues first because they're considered the softest delicacy of meat. I mean, that's what you go for first. It's going to be missing if it's out there in the wild.
Yeah, but I don't think just because you fall asleep in a tent, you should wake up without your tongue. I mean, there's something else going on there. Like, whether it froze and then thawed and then froze and then thawed. I mean, worst case scenario, that's like freezer burn.
Yeah, see, that part didn't make any sense to me. I get that decomposition happens, but how long were they out there?
Yeah, and the cold weather will also slow decomposition.
Right. I mean, Otzi has been around for thousands of years in the same kind of conditions. I mean, wasn't he found in the Swiss Alps? They're up there with the Ural Mountains.
So my thing is, if it was an animal, it would have to have just been, I don't know, like that's the same problem we have. They're so far away from everything else. Why would a random walking by animal just decide to eat people's faces?
Okay, well, I guess let's go back real quick. If it's an animal or it's something that attacked them.
But here's
3 of them died of injuries, and the other 5 died,
Hypothermia.
or the other 6 died of hypothermia. So, I mean, there's like, how do you die if you're in a tent? How do you die of... And they say that these weren't injuries that another human would have done to another human.
Well, infrasound, could infrasound break bones?
I don't know.
I think that if it was
I'm
strong
not a
enough, it could.
soundologist.
Yeah, also, Tanya, can I have you look? How fast does it take to die in Siberia overnight? minus 30.
Oh, so
I mean, like,
freezing temperatures?
hypothermia sets in pretty dang fast, but if you're out there and you're in the, your long johns only, I mean, how long do you have to get back to that tent? And you start a little fire, and you think, it's half a mile back up this mountain.
They obviously were trying to scramble back to save themselves. And one of the, there's the whole thing about the paradoxical undressing, and you're familiar with that.
Right.
Upon the time that you start,
freeze.
you get your hypothermia is so far that you feel like you're warm, you're burning up.
Right.
And they start ripping clothes off. And then that's why they say that some of these people didn't have any clothes on. Other people were wearing other people's clothes. Well, maybe they were picking up the clothes to save them. Maybe somebody already died. When your body gives out, I don't know. I've been really, really cold and whiny, but never to the point where I almost died. And I have to think that I've been so tired, though, that I really thought, like, listen, this farmer's market is just too big, and I'm not going to make it to the beer tent. Just leave me here to die. So I know that feeling. But I would imagine if you're a mile away from a camp, you're out, your body's done, you're freezing to death, you're just like, leave me here.
I agree.
So-
And on the same note, see, I've had some little bit of frostbite on my toes, and they hurt like a bitch anytime they get cold and start to warm up. And anytime that happens, if I were to see that somebody else was wearing socks they were not using, I would gladly steal them off of their feet.
So at minus 30 degrees Fahrenheit, which is what they were experiencing, it would, if for a healthy person who isn't properly dressed, would experience hypothermia in as little as 10 minutes. And,
Here,
left untreated, they don't have maybe like another, in those temperatures, probably another 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, maybe
Before
extend it a little
organs
bit
start
if you were
shutting down.
inebriated, right? Because that guy in the Titanic in the water, he lived because he was inebriated, so that's been proven.
Which guy, what?
The cook, I think, he got drunk on sherry and he was bobbing around, and that's the reason he got pulled out of the water alive, is because he was drunk, and it slowed down all of his body functions.
Oh, I didn't hear that story. That's a story for another day.
Yep.
so it says that infrasound can cause paranoia, nausea, blood pressure to rise, but there are certain types of infrasound, usually around 7 hertz, it's considered to be lethal because it matches the frequencies of your brains and organs. And other than causing nausea and nervousness, it can cause paranoia, depression, peripheral vision blurriness. It can actually cause, what's this say?
Yeah, but what's causing this infrasound?
The wind coming around the mountains. And that'd be another reason why the animals wouldn't be there either, because they're not going to walk into that and go, hey, I feel Apparently.
So there is a diary entry. Like one of the last diary entries before they went up there was talking about how the wind was whipping around, how they seemed to be so far away from civilization, how the wind was like deafening them. So I can understand like it would be crazy and it would drive you out of your mind, but I don't know if it would drive me out of my mind enough to run out in the middle of negative 30 in my underwear.
Well, here's the thing, though. If it was the same pressure as your brain and you were basically paranoid and having physical pain, I don't think that you're going to worry about putting on a pair of socks before you go out outside.
Okay, so
I've been winter camping, man.
I
I've
do
had to be in the middle of the night.
I understand there's a science behind that, but how is that related? How did that make them? What caused the internal injuries?
Well, if it matches the extent of your organs, it could be severe pain, and then I haven't found anything about it breaking bones, but I don't know if that's possible. I mean, I don't know. And I know, let's say that they were out there and they were going through all this significant pain and they fell. The snow may cause the bruising to be minimal because of how cold it is. And
yeah, but if I'm correct, I think that the 3 that were found with these internal injuries were found further away from the camp, like down by the tree line. So you're talking about a lot of this wind would probably break down. So if there were going to be some kind of effect like that, it would be, I can imagine, closer to the top of the mountain, something happening, resonating a lot.
So
a
here's
lot
what
more.
happened. The mountain was yelling, and then they got sad, and they ran away. The ones that hurt themselves fell down this ravine and were attacked by the Yeti and the jumpsuit, the radioactive jumpsuit.
The mountain goes
With the jetpack.
I
So
declare
I
I'm a mountain.
Yeah, I was going to say, what does a mountain yelling sound like? That was my one question out of
That's what it
everything.
The sound that it creates is it's known as the
the tiger.
Kármán something vortex street, and it's a
like
repeating pattern or swirling vortex, and
Time machine.
it's actually an unsteady separation of the flow of fluid around blunt bodies. So basically, their internal organs could have vibrated
yeah.
themselves apart.
Right. They could have been rupturing. They could
Well,
have
yeah, that's fine. I mean, like, your spleen can explode, but that doesn't mean your ribs crush themselves and you've got, like, brain injuries.
Well, this theory came,
skulls
so
dented in.
2013 there was a book by Donnie Icar, and he's the one that came up with this whole theory. So this is like later in the day, but it's not, it's just a theory that just came out. It's come out in the last 5-6 years, but.
So just because it's recent doesn't
No,
mean it's
no.
true?
Just
I
like
mean,
it's just a theory. It's just like this guy says, I think I know what happens. There's no scientific. I don't think he has scientific.
There's going to be
background.
lots of that. What did you say there were? 22,000 podcasts about this crap?
Yeah, but most of them tell the story and they don't really go into. But some of them will just be like, so this is why it was a Yeti. This is why it was the government conspiracy. So that's the kind of stuff.
Week by week, I can give you a detailed explanation for each reason why it
Well,
was.
what's really interesting is they reopened the case and they're going to test. There were 75 different theories that they were given, and they're testing 3. 3.
Who's opening
Well,
this case?
because I think everybody we all could come up with a theory, our own theory.
Well, right, but I mean, I still think if someone said, "Hey, let's test the biological weapon theory,"
So
do you really think they're going to? Yes,
So,
let's
so
do that.
like I said, the very first time I heard this thing, it was
Russians,
told to
you know.
me to freak me out. It was told to me, did you hear the story of the hikers? I was like, oh my God, this story. And then I started doing all this research and I go, oh, well, that's just how things go. The first time I heard this story, they made it sound like essentially aliens or a Yeti and that their bodies were torn apart.
Who's they?
I don't know. The first time I heard the story, they.
the
You
people
know,
in
they-
black that came up.
They're the same
they
people
informed
who
me
did
about
this.
the aliens.
They're the
that
ones that
flashed
always
me.
like, they said, don't.
I was like, this
if
is
you
a horrible
smoke,
bedtime story.
then you stop growing. I don't know.
They at the other end of all the conspiracy theories, Ryan. They.
No, they.
But that's the more I researched it. I said, oh, there's kind of some science behind this to why this stuff happened. I mean, people die all the time out in the woods, and we weren't there, and we don't know. But I went camping with my friends a lot, and we would do dumb things because we would drink. 2 of my friends took 2 road flares and hiked into an old mine, and didn't think that the smoke from the flares would just fill the mine and start. The smoke just kept getting further and further down. Those guys could have died down there. We didn't know where they went. We just know they just told us later on. They're like, "Oh, we got trapped in this mine." But I think of all the wonderful stories. It would have been like 2 miners disappeared one night and didn't tell the other campers where they were. They went deep into a mine and ate each other's faces and fought with road flares. You don't know.
Lured by the
story would
white
have been.
woman
But the story
into the
was they
cave.
thought, "Hey, we'll go into this mine with road flares," and the smoke from the road flares filled the mine with smoke, and they were crawling. They said they had like 2 inches of air crawling on the ground trying to get out of there, like a good eighth of a mile trying to get out of this thing.
I mean, there is the amazing lack of human foresight that could be completely to blame for
Oh,
this.
and I should let you know, they were drunk, and that's why that seemed like a great idea. So that's just what we did. We
like
drank.
climbing a mountain that nobody else climbs.
How
when you're drunk.
How much of adult were you as a 20-year-old
Well,
camping?
Probably a lot more than I should have been.
You probably were. I was not. I made up for it. I did dumb things.
Thank you, Bill.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. I mean, there's just, like you said, there are so many different theories behind all of this, and it's the simplest one that's probably the most reasonable, and that would be the government testing biological weapons.
You think that's more reasonable than it caught fire?
I think it's more reasonable than an avalanche knocked over a stove when there wasn't an avalanche.
Well, yeah.
Well, but there
it's
was
not
a
more
stove.
reasonable than Disco Yeti jetpacks.
Oh, I should say something. I had read somewhere that they weren't using the stove that night, and that's the one thing that kind of threw me
Who
off.
says that? I mean,
I-
they were in
you
the
just
middle
read
of
so much
eating
of-
The
meat.
Wolverine.
What, are they just
all,
gonna eat
all
frozen
this stuff.
meat?
You actually, if you really want, you could dig through all this stuff. All the files have been released. The autopsy report, all the photos, everything's been released.
I mean, how else are you going to stay warm?
They've given us some information.
Some have been
It
blocked.
doesn't
Some has been
mean-
blocked off. But if there's a really good, but it's in Russian documentary on YouTube about this. But the problem there's captions, but it's you've got to look. And who now? We can't watch a movie now without staring at our phones, so that kind of screws everything up. But yeah, there's a Russian documentary about this. That apparently it's full of everything. It has all the photos and everything. Have you seen the autopsy? Not the autopsy photos, but when they found the bodies.
Yeah, I've seen
You
some of
those?
the actual stuff. It's pretty
crazy.
interesting. It's compelling stuff to just look at the photos. I think that the photos is what sells the story.
Yeah.
Looking at the photos and how happy these people were, and then how crazy the campsite looked, with that explanation at the end, and the imagination just takes off.
You know, one of the things that sparked my curiosity is that the fact that they classified all the information immediately, and then you found out 90% of the stuff that the military was involved in that they researched was just classified. So it could have been like a barking dog at the admiral's house or something, and they did an investigation and classified it because that dog because the admiral had a jerk dog.
Just because the military was involved. It's
Yeah. So
classified.
they just classified stuff. So
Well, they did say that what killed them was an unknown, unforeseen force.
Right.
I mean, that
That's
it was
because you
worded
don't-
super weird.
that
because
could
you
be
don't
anything.
know.
What's the
Exactly.
actual wording? I found that very powerful, man. It's just like an unknown, unrelenting, or...
I'm looking.
Were you snapping at Tom? Or
I was snapping. No, I was snapping at Tom. It just pulled it away from my mic because
Yeah.
Tom starts putting his mic in his pocket.
We need to get
Puts
one of
his head
those-
out the window.
One
Just
of
trying
those
to steal
muzzles.
it.
Yes.
It's just really nice.
Can we
mic.
make a mic muzzle? That would be great.
Yeah, if we could just hang off of my face,
Yeah.
that'd be good.
Just get a gas mask and take out and just put the mic in there.
I can't breathe with this on. I don't care. You can breathe after the show's over. How'd he die?
We have no idea.
Death by mic.
Right.
His hallway started yelling, and we just never saw him again.
All his bones were
He
broken.
just tore all his clothes off and ran.
It was so weird.
That's not like an uncommon thing.
Tried to climb up a tree, and then a Yeti got him.
Yep, and threw him down the stairs.
Right.
That's how you broke your bones.
Oh, the investigation concluded that an unknown compelling force
Compelling.
had caused
Unknown
the death.
compelling force.
So that is how they died. Is by
That's
unknown
going to be my
compelling.
new reason for a lot of things. The next time we get pulled over for a speeding ticket, and they say, "Do you know why you were speeding?" I'm going to say, "An unknown compelling force."
Tom, you overcooked the steak. What happened? Well,
Yeah, I tried.
Unknown,
but
compelling force.
unknown compelling force. And I can't cook. But yeah. All right. So do you guys have any other theories that you want to talk about? What do you think happened? Tom, let's start with you. Tom, what do you think happened?
I think it's a fire. It just makes the most legitimate sense to me. When you're talking about the skin being discolored, the fact that they wanted to get the hell out of the tent right away, but then they were fine.
Well, let me ask you this: did they find anything that was burnt or melted?
Yeah,
Some of the clothes.
Some of the people did have burns on them.
Yeah, but you also said they had video or photo proof that happened many days beforehand.
They didn't have video.
Well, that's why I corrected.
No,
you.
so I think there
It
was
was
a
on
photo.
beta. And they were all VHS people, so they had no way to
Oh,
play it.
gotcha.
Some of the stuff that I think it kind of attributes itself to this is there were lots of photos of these people, and then there's a photo of like the day before that where somebody's wearing a jacket that has some like burn marks on it, obviously. So
Yeah.
people are kind of thinking that maybe that set fire to that originally, and If that's going to be a problem once, it's going to be a problem again.
And one of the two people down with their eyes missing and their tongues missing, they had burnt hands. Oh no, it was the other ones by the tree. Sorry, the naked ones. The naked ones, their hands were burned. They weren't naked.
I heard they were like hamburger because they had the accounts you read, make it out like they were trying to scramble up these huge conifer trees as fast as they could, and they're just shredding their hands on this bark. But honestly, it says that they had a fire. Who knows how long that they were there for? So it's only 15 feet up that they're stripping these branches. If you're going to burn stuff, it's going to be what you can reach.
Yeah, it could have been that. Okay, so your theory is that it was fire.
Yeah, and then they
the
try
fire
to return.
catch on fire or smoke, and they have to run out.
The internal injuries make sense if you were shoved off by an avalanche.
Okay, so next.
There was no evidence of an avalanche.
Hold on.
At the bottom,
hey.
15 feet
It's his
of snow.
theory. It's his theory. Let him have
It's
it.
a theory, man.
I'm going to go to you last, Ryan, because I think you might go longer on this. So now I'm going to go to Tanya. Tanya, what is your theory? What do you think happened?
I don't know. I'm a little bit torn between the infrasound, because I feel like that could be a viable reason to make them go a little bit nuts, cause some internal injuries, and then them fall off the edge of a ravine, which causes more injuries. But I'm not ruling out the military cover-up.
I'm just gonna go right there. I feel the same way.
Government
and infrasound. Maybe one caused the other. I don't know.
So if that's happened in what year was this? 1959.
Yeah.
If that happened then, how come it's not happening now? I've been camping a lot. I mean,
What?
we have an Air Force base not far from here. I've been all over these mountains in the middle of the night. How come I've never felt like... In the middle of the night, I've suddenly felt like cow tipping, but never running out of my tent like I was going to die.
Yeah, but you also have never had a wolverine start an avalanche that knocked over a stove that killed 9 people.
Because
Yeah.
the mountain was
Damn
yelling.
disco jetpack Yetis.
See, that's what I'm saying. Like, okay, there were people within 30 miles or 100 miles of this, right? If there was enough smoke, don't you think someone would have noticed?
I mean, you're not talking about tons of smoke. It doesn't take tons of smoke to fill up a small room full of smoke, Ryan. I mean, you set a trash can fire and it's going to put enough smoke in there that you can't breathe.
Yeah, but I bet if you put a trash can fire outside, someone's going to notice it.
I suppose on a mountain. I mean, in the middle of the night, even. If you didn't notice the light, and I mean, if somebody said that they saw a light there's one set of hikers that's reported light up in the sky, but who knows where they were relative to where up in the sky is in the middle of the night.
Fire, yeah. I'm torn between infrasound and the government.
Yeah, because we're not talking about like an explosion. It's not
wait,
propane.
when you say government, you're saying what?
The
though?
military.
Military.
But like what?
Biological weapons or something.
They could have been testing there, and they could have accidentally had something.
And then they needed a way to cover it up, so they blamed it on a wolverine. Right? I think, even our government tested LSD on people for 30 years.
Yeah, that's
yeah.
all. Yeah, and that was completely documented and then completely classified for.
Right, but they did that on purpose.
Yeah, but
if they didn't mean to dump this on people, they're not going to be like, our bad.
Yeah, but they let this out. I mean, and they pretty much said, yeah, we did this. I mean, there's no reason that the Russian government couldn't do that by now. You're talking about 9 people. You're not talking about, several towns affected by this LSD stuff. Lots of people. But you're talking about, 9 people. If the Russian government did this to 9 people, you think in 50 years they could say, guess what? Our bad.
Well, not necessarily. If they see it as irrelevant and that you're going to let people coming up with conclusions and theories that don't point to you directly, why try to break something that isn't, why try to fix something that isn't broken, right? That's like saying, oh, I did this crime 40 years ago, put me in jail.
Yeah,
right?
but I mean,
no point.
I guess so. If there were going to be one government outside of maybe China, I would do that too. Maybe it would be the Russian government, especially at that time period.
I don't know. Let's just blame it on the mountain.
What do you
The
think,
singing
Bill?
mountain.
Well, I got to think that Ryan's got to let everybody else get theirs out, and then we got to hear yours. I want to hear yours. I'm excited. I'm gonna.
Mr.
I have
Crap on my theory.
I have a whole new one. You ready?
Go ahead.
Here's my theory. Romance, and I'll tell you why.
There were 6 women there.
No,
There were
there's
only
2
2
women.
women there.
There's
I
2
heard
women.
that there were 6.
No.
It changes the whole.
No, he's like,
party.
I want to
It was
teacher.
not
I want to change
it
my
wasn't
answer.
a girl slumber party.
No. There was 2. There
According
was
to
2
Bill,
women.
There were only 2 women. There was a lot of 6.
Ooh, okay.
There was there were 7 guys and there were 2 women, and they were all younger. They were all young, except for the one guy who was 38, 39, 40, whatever. They were drinking. Some of the people didn't have their clothes on. They were all in one tent. they've been together for a long time. You got to think some romance was stirring up a little bit, right?
So you're saying this is like evil Brokeback Mountain?
No, like
No.
more like romantic cliffhanger.
I can see what you're saying.
Okay, so it's little romance is going on. Maybe somebody got caught touching somebody, holding on somebody else's hand after they were. Anyway, there was a little violence ensued. I think that possibly a fight happened. I think maybe the fireplace got hit. Somebody got hit in the head. There was a bad gash to the head. So maybe some people went running out of the tent scared. Other people ran out to chase them. Somebody got blown in the wind, rocked down, got their socks rocked off, and rolled down a cliff and hit a rock. And everything just went bad, really bad, and they never made it back to their. They never made it back there.
So I can see the cover of this book right now. It's got a man embracing a woman with a flaming stove in
Fabio.
the background.
Yeah.
And then like
They're all just mummified.
right, and like this Wolverine holding on to the Yeti's hand.
I'm thinking Thelma and Louise on ice.
Ooh, there you go.
It's the moral of the story, kids.
I
Don't
do-
fall
So
in
it's
love.
Dyatlov
Ooh.
Pass
Ooh.
is what it's called.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, that is, and it's yeah, exactly. That's exactly what happened.
I mean, that's feasible. I believe,
No, really.
I believe that's more plausible than the fake avalanche. It
But
doesn't
it is
exist.
still causing a fire.
Well,
but
yeah,
drama that it could be some. The fire. Say if people's hands were burned. Imagine if you're in a tent, and a fight breaks out. They're drinking. Fight breaks out.
How big is this tent?
I can find out.
Yeah, you're talking about 9 people.
There was
I mean,
9 people. There was 9 people sleeping in one tent.
Cabin tent's like 9
It's got to
by
be
13.
a decent sized tent, and there's a fireplace on it. Every time they're fighting, a fight breaks out. I thought, Natasha, I thought you loved me, but no, you love him. Fight ensues, and then they get in this really big fight. I'm sorry to any Russians that were really offended by my really bad accent. that I just
Privyet,
did.
everybody.
Accents were not out to. All right, so anyway, then fight breaks out. Tent tips over, thing gets. So, and then he's like, I'm going to get you. And they go, no, you don't. And then they cut a tent out the side. They run to escape for safety. Somebody's got a knife. Everybody's got knives. They all start running. You're naked, but you're with the girl you love. And you sprint out into the woods thinking you'll get safe, but you get lost because it's cold, it's windy,
He's drunk.
it's dark. By the way, have you been out at night in the woods when it's like just all snow? You get lost. I know during the day you can, but
Well,
at
just
night
in
you
the
can,
snow.
too.
I mean,
But if you're trying to run for safety, other people are like, go get him. I'll go get him. Everybody runs out. And they're drinking. They just get lost, and they never make it back. That's what I think.
That's beautiful and sad. It's.
I think there's a movie coming out of that.
I do too.
I mean, like that. I watched
Dyatlov
that.
Pass is what it's called.
Love
Dyatlov
Pass.
Pass.
And then you mentioned that's why they had gray hair, right? They were all their vitality was gone,
Right.
you know, because they.
Well, when you're in a relationship, it ages you.
It does. I kind of like that. That's a good theory.
Okay, so that was just mine. You know, there was another theory though that they said one person got lost and they tried to find them.
Well, that's not as.
The old guy.
But
One
they
person
all
went
decided
out.
to go looking for him in their underwear.
Well, I don't know. Well, but you got to keep in mind they may not have all been. Well, I guess some people left without their shoes though.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The fight would make more sense.
The fight if you're running out, you're
let's go
like
find someone.
like I'm leaving. You can't leave. It's cold out. I'm gone. I'm out of here. Like it's dramatic ends. But you exit. But how dramatic can your exit be if you have to go? Zzz, you have to zip a tent. You're like, no, I'm gonna cut the side out of the tent.
There were 5 cuts. 3 of them almost top to bottom. 3 of them about halfway.
Yeah,
Or 2
and
about halfway.
if you look at them, I mean, there's several gashes. There's not like one solid cut. Some of them are like,
So
let's
some-
get me the hell out of
So
here.
basically, someone walked out and a couple people crawled out. If they only cut halfway up the tent.
Yeah, I don't know.
The short
Listen, that's
people-
my
short
theory.
people made it out. All you tall fuckers,
Yeah,
you can be left to the wraith.
Tom would be the first out to die. It would take us a little longer to get.
I'm
out.
drunk. It's not cold out here. Come on out.
Tom, what about your shoes? No, I'm good. I got
I'm
this.
fine, man.
This is cool. Meet me down to
They're
Tom. What
Crocs.
about your tongue?
They're
Nah, I don't need
Crocs.
it.
I'll be down at the mountain. Woo.
Crocs.
Not gonna do me any good.
These are great in snow, man. They let your feet breathe. I'm the douchiest guy out here. All right, and with that, the final theory, Ryan.
So I think the most plausible would be that there was some sort of military testing that caused them to behave in a way they wouldn't normally, whether it's biological, whether it's fear, whatever it is. But since I can't listen to the mountain and the wind, I don't know if the wind around the mountain can actually produce that kind of infrasound. But to me, and that's a naturally occurring phenomenon, and if these people were up there in the right, like Tanya said, the right place at the right time, they could have been affected by it, acted irrationally, and then once they were far enough away, realized that they were screwed, and there's nothing they could do to get back.
Here's my only problem with that, though. If the military were going to put the time in to try and make this happen, and if it only happened in the right place in the right time, that's fine. They can study it and whatever. But if they actually got anything out of it, you don't think that they would utilize that later on. And I don't see any other, like, instances of this coming out.
Well, the military wouldn't cause the sound to happen. It was the wind.
Sure, but they wouldn't go out there and say, look, let's just try and find out what causes it to happen. Okay, it's infrasound. Let's see how we can make this work. If it only happens in this one peak of the world, you don't think there would be a military presence there to this day?
Well, here's the thing. There's a lot of things in nature that produce that much infrasound. There's earthquakes, there's volcanoes, and people like even Cuba recently has been trying to use sonic weaponry. I mean, that is a thing now. People have been I don't know how long they've been doing it, but they have been researching using sonic waves as both a lethal and non-lethal form of weaponry.
I have to imagine that started about the time Michael Bublé started singing.
Probably true. Or Celine Dion.
That's right.
But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. They have been doing that, right? And I don't know, it's because they haven't found a viable way to harness it, or it's, more expensive than trying to trick people to go up into the mountains for a week. I have no idea. I just
trick people.
I just think that sound as a weapon is very plausible. So
that makes sense.
The military shut down that area for 3 years after.
It was 3 or 30?
3. They for 3 years nobody could go up there.
Yeah, but now there are campers there all the time who have nothing. I mean, like, where do you hear about this stuff?
Well, there was people saying they're going to just recently go back up there this year in March.
Well, the Discovery Center just went up there and they did that documentary. They talked to the guy that they brought on. I was listening to him on a podcast. He said the Discovery Center tried to just after they filmed it and they couldn't find anything good, turned it into just a thing about Yetis. And they said that they even faked a sound that they heard while they were like, oh, it looks at that sound. No human could have made that sound. And the guy said that wouldn't happen. So the Discovery Center tried to even fake a documentary on it.
Well,
Interesting.
I don't know. Maybe something 30 years later has caused the mountain to not be exactly where it was because maybe a real avalanche happened. And now the dangerous, windy part is not where these people were.
The Shouting Mountain has been stifled.
Yeah. Or they took foiled by earplugs.
Oh, damn.
I don't know. So.
There was the American Dyatlov Pass too.
Yeah,
which
I
we're not talking
read
about
about that a little bit.
I have not
we
heard
don't need to
about
go
this.
into it a whole bunch, but there was a...
Wouldn't that be the Donner Party?
No. Not yet.
Oh, wait, that's a little bit different, sorry.
No, this was about, was it 4 or 5 people that were just found out in the middle of nowhere? They were all friends?
There was 5 guys, and they died. There was just confusion. They found the car. They found, nothing else. And we can go further into that another day, but there is one. There is another version like
There's
that.
movies that tell us that this stuff happens. I mean, there's the Blair Witch Project. You're talking about Evil Dead. Isn't that exactly what happened with Evil Dead? There are 6 of them in a cabin in the middle of nowhere.
Well, there was a movie made about Dyatlov Pass, and it was called Devil's Pass. And it was these people that tried to recreate everything, and they said, "Oh, let's go up there and see what happens." And I'm not going to spoil it, but I'm going to I'm going to say don't watch it. It's terrible because I actually kind of enjoyed it, but at the end they mixed it with aliens and the government. They found this bunker. They're
Is it
like,
a mockumentary,
oh, look, no, it's not. It's just a movie. Like, yeah, let's go there and see what happened. And
Blair Witched it.
Not even that. It was just them. Yeah, but that. No, and it wasn't like a found footage film. It was just they really just were filming these people. Then were being chased by aliens in bunkers and. Anyway, it's called Devil's Pass. Came out in 2013. Don't watch it. Instead, watch The Man Who Killed Adolf Hitler and The Bigfoot.
Don't watch that either. I mean,
Don't watch that either.
Just watch Caddyshack again or something good like
Yeah.
that.
Go explore unexplored mountaintops and get back to us.
Yeah.
Don't watch movies.
Although we are still Ryan, and we're actually going to talk about this again and probably research it. But is the Oahe Mountains and the little people that you said?
Oh, yeah, the Narumbis.
Yeah. This actually might have to be a topic.
Yeah, it'd be a cool one.
Yeah.
For the
We should actually...
We could do that in location
Yeah, we could.
from the Oahe.
I know. I'm afraid. I'm scared. When it's warmer, we can do it when it's warmer.
You can't be scared. You said you're a skeptic. I mean, like, how can skeptics be
He's
scared?
scared. We just did something about people.
Oh no!
Oh.
I'm just scared to be that far away from public restrooms. That's all.
If you're peeing outside, it's in the public.
Yeah.
that's true.
Yeah, we can all see you.
Peeing in your pants is cool. All right. Well, I think so. So that's your theory. We heard your theory.
Yep.
All right. I think it was good. I think it was good.
You know, I think we
We
should all
don't
go out in
know.
the middle of the winter and in a tent and see what it takes to scare us out of that damn tent.
Okay, I'm down with that.
Yeah?
We all get in the tent. You just hear,
I'm out!
but everybody's out. Everybody just runs as fast as they can. They start. Knives come out. Tents are. People run out without their shoes. That's a theory we left off. What did they eat? Did anybody see?
They were preparing dinner.
Was it like Taco Bell? And they're like, "Oh, that was a huge mistake."
Where would you get Taco Bell?
I don't know. We went hiking Half Dome. We get all the way to the top of Half Dome, and my friend pulls out a bunch of previous day bought Taco Bell. He's like, "We're going to celebrate with a quesadilla."
Hey, man, I got burritos in my pocket. You want one?
They were in his backpack. He brought them all the way up there.
That
I'm eating
is
granola.
gross.
I ate one, and I celebrated the top of Half Dome. I'm not kidding. I celebrated the Half Dome with some day old Taco Bell. People were walking by us like they're just sitting there with their like granola, and they're like, "Look at us, we made it!" And we actually had beer and
And
Taco
3-day old Taco Bell?
it was 2 days. It was bought the previous day.
So did it make your
No, here's
achievement
the-
better? Or did it like...
The what?
Was the achievement better with the Taco Bell? Just as an aside.
When you made it at the top, I'm glad he didn't tell me during it. Because I think it would have been... But luckily, it's all downhill from there, literally. Like, it's like,
Right.
it's all downhill.
You get
I say
wind
that
acceleration.
every time I eat Taco Bell. It's all downhill from here.
Quick, get me home. Stat.
Yeah.
Before Yeti gets me.
That blurry Yeti with a jetpack.
And then Ryan came back all gray-haired and orange. It was really gross. All
And
right,
now
well...
I'm the president.
He was there. He knows.
So I think that if you guys want to look up any more stuff on the Yeti... Or on the Yeti. On the Dyatlov Pass.
On the
not
Yeti,
the Yeti.
please let us know.
Look it up. There's a lot of facts that we left out, I think, but they weren't really truly relevant. And I think
Most of the facts aren't relevant.
Yeah.
I think it's just because most of it doesn't make sense, or you're getting different people saying different things. But anyway, yeah, there's some cool stuff out there. So that's it. I think thanks everybody for if you're still listening. Sorry if you left. If you stopped listening, suck it. I hate you anyways. I'm glad you're not here anymore.
Yeah, tell us what made you claw yourself out of the tent that is our show.
How many people died after listening to this podcast?
I'd rather freeze, man.
Where's your shoes? I can't listen anymore. I'm gone. I'm out. All right, so I think next week we're kind of exciting because we're going to do a tarot card reading.
Yeah, I think so. That's the point.
Tarot card, which by the way, Tanya just got her first. She's been researching it. She just got her first deck, and she's been learning a lot.
Yeah, next time you should pull a card for each of us, too.
Yeah.
We figured out I'm the what? I'm the Knight of Cups.
Knight of Cups.
I'm the Knight of Cups. If you want to, you should research that and find out what that is. Knight of Cups. Anything exciting going on? Anybody want to talk about? Anything cool? Nope. Nothing. All right. Well, I guess with that, I think we're gonna call it a night. So, thanks for listening, and everybody say goodbye.
Goodbye. See you next time.
Bye.